What you're currently seeing on screen is footage of the very first fully completed and playable Dead by Daylight map. This one is simply called the MacMillan Estate. Now hold on a second, isn't MacMillan a whole realm instead of just a single map? Well, yes, that is the case today. However, back in the alpha versions of the game, the MacMillan Estate was one gigantic map that included almost every single main building of the realm that we currently know of. Those being the Ironworks of Misery, the Coal Tower and the mine from the Suffocation Pit. This original MacMillan map didn't include the Groaning Storehouse nor the Skull Merchant's base, as these were added a lot later. Now, even though this map was the only one that was accessible to the public, there were actually a lot more maps like this that existed in the game files. For example, there was also a Coldwind farm map that once again contained almost all of the main buildings that we're familiar with today, except of course the Fractured Cowshed, as that one was still in development. This Coldwind map was shaped in the form of a giant cross, and if you stood in the middle of it, you could see all of the three main structures for yourself. Now, in my original video that I made about these maps a couple of months ago, I did mention these two, however I said that there was no map like this for Autohaven wreckers. But it turns out that I was actually wrong, and in fact, there is a gigantic Autohaven map just like the other ones that we've taken a look at so far, in the sense that it's basically a compilation of all of the current Autohaven maps. However, unlike the MacMillan and Coldwind ones, this one isn't completed as there seem to be a significant amount of untextured tiles spread throughout the map. Now, with these realms being the three original ones that were released alongside the full official version of Dead by Daylight on the 14th of June 2016, it would make sense that these three maps are the only so-called gigantic ones that existed in the game files, right? Well, strangely enough, no, there is actually one more map of this nature, that being the Backwater Swamp. As you can see, this one is clearly the least developed out of the four that we've seen up to now, as there is an abundance of untextured tiles. However, most of the common swamp structures are still here, including the shrimp boat, the cursed cabin, the pale rose, and even the main building from the village map. Now, as some of you might already know, the swamp was originally intended to be released alongside Dead by Daylight during the summer of 2016. However, due to time constraints, that unfortunately wasn't possible, and this was all actually confirmed by DBD's creative director Dave Richard on an old developer livestream from back in 2017. Roll the clip.
And the raid in the background, interesting story. The swamp was originally home to the raid.
It's true.
Yeah, but then swamp could not have been released in the original offering, so the raid was moved, lore and everything, to the junkyard.
Sometimes these things happen quite fast.
Yeah, and then we're like, oh, okay, let's change everything.
But this doesn't answer the question of why did the developers even begin to develop these original gigantic and very thematic maps, when at the end all main buildings got separated into their own separate maps. Well, I've got two theories, the first one being that they tried out this idea with the MacMillan Estate during the alpha, and they saw that these types of maps were absolutely giant and that they shouldn't keep making them. The second one is that these were just test maps to see how the overall atmosphere and gameplay of the maps would feel. I am personally more so leaning towards the second theory, but I'm curious as to what you guys think about all of this. Let me know down in the comments. Alright, now since we've discussed mainly very big maps until now, let's move on to the exact opposite. Mini is a very tiny map within the MacMillan Estate realm. It only features one exit gate, a potential hill and a couple of filler tiles. There is no main building nor shack, and it also lacks any kind of maze tiles and even the map borders. Because of these reasons, this map was supposedly used purely for testing purposes, and was later either repurposed for the tutorial, or just outright completely scrapped extremely early in development. Seb's Dream is another tiny map from the MacMillan Estate. It is one of the most bare-boned maps, with it not featuring any defining features whatsoever, aside from one exit gate, a lot of missing tiles and an abundance of hooks. This map was likely just another testing one. However, unlike these two maps, there is one more map in the MacMillan Estate that seems completely finished. Storehouse 3 is a variation of the current Groaning Storehouse. The main building is still in the center of the map, however the locations around it have been altered, notably the shack has been moved to a different corner of the map. Moving on, Sawmill was one of the 3 unused maps found in the game's beta build. More than half of the map was filled with completely empty tiles, and this one was completely unplayable and inaccessible without hacking the game. Sawmill also used the original Coldwind Farm skybox as well as other props, assets and structures from that realm, possibly due to the fact that the map was entirely unfinished. It is unknown what this map would have been used for, perhaps it was a very early work in progress version of the Disturbed World, mainly because Sawmill was located in a separate folder and labeled as a different area and location alongside MacMillan, Autohaven, Coldwind and Swamp. Also, it was completely removed from the game files with patch 1.1.0, which is the same update in which the Disturbed World map from the Crotus Prenn Asylum realm was added. Speaking of the Asylum, Carnival, or sometimes referred to as Infinite Gym, is a rather sizable semicircle shaped map from the Crotus Prenn Asylum. There are no maze tiles here, however several missing tiles can be found scattered around the map, some of which likely being the main building which is absent here. The map is largely an empty space with the exception of a few hills and the shack, and may have been an early version of Father Campbell's chapel, as these two tiles right here conveniently match the overall shape and size of the chapel. Moving on, we have the most famous facility map from Haddonfield. Overall, this is an extremely barren, medium-sized rectangular map inside Haddonfield, with many missing tiles present throughout. Facility has one random house as well as a killer shack, a very low quality textured main building, and some kind of weird chimneys, if you can call them that, I guess. Similar to the old official Haddonfield map, this one here also features really long fences. However, an interesting detail that is often overlooked when people discuss this unreleased map is that there are a couple of sliding doors which open when a generator nearby is complete, similar to the ones from the game map, and the main building is inaccessible until one of these generators are completed. Now, when it comes to unreleased Haddonfield maps, this one right here, the facility, is mostly where a lot of the discussions come to an end. But did you know that in an early developer build back from when the 1.3.1 update was added to the game, an even earlier second iteration of the Haddonfield map exists? Well, what you're currently seeing on screen is exactly that. But what is different in this one compared to the official version? Well, rather than the road going through the middle of the map and separating the trial grounds into two parts like in the official version, here it's actually going around the outside, which I personally find really interesting and I honestly think it's a cool concept for the map. Well, even though this version may seem almost complete, it is by far definitely not finished. As you can see, the road is still missing its textures, there are holes in the ground, some cars aren't textured and the totem spawns haven't been completely figured out yet. Moving on, we've got the Yamaoka Estate realm. This one actually contains 3 unreleased maps, with all of them being referred to as shack in the game files, which suggests that they're very similar to maps like for example Rotenfields and Trekker's Yard, both of which have the shack as the only building / structure in them. The first unreleased Yamaoka map that we're going to take a look at is called Shack A, and its layout is like a fat ring, with the singular central tile of the map being completely walled off and inaccessible. This map contains no main building but does have the shack, as well as several shrines and maze tiles throughout and pretty much everything else to make a complete map. It is overall polished and suitable for being released, and the reasons for why this map was never released are currently unknown. We've also got Shack B, which is a much more generic medium-sized square-ish map. It contains no unique main building, but features the signature Yamaoka Estate shrines, as well as a hill, the shack and a very large amount of maze tiles. From what I can tell by looking at this photo, there seem to be at least 5 jungle gyms on this side of the map alone, and they're all pretty well interconnected with each other. Just like the previous map that we took a look at, this one is also well polished and a releasable state, so to say. The last unused Yamaoka Estate map is Shack C, and this is very similar to Shack B. Pretty much the only difference between the two is that here, the amount of overall maze tiles is slightly lower than on the previous one, and also the borders and general shape of the map are a little bit different. I apologize for the fact that I don't have any gameplay for these Yamaoka ones, and that I'm only showing screenshots on screen, but that's all of the footage that I have from them, unfortunately. Moving on, we've got Grim Gully, also known as the infamous village map from the Backwater swamp realm. This is perhaps the most famous and coolest unused maps found in Dead by Daylight's files. It is a pretty small map, however it features the Blood Willow tree, which honestly looks incredibly freaking cool and is probably cooler than any of the other buildings or trees that we have in the current swamp maps. Also, remember the village from the gigantic Backwater swamp map from the beta that we took a look at the start of the video? Well, here it is, it's fully modeled and textured, the only things missing are perhaps a couple of filler props like boxes and stuff like that. The terrain in the map is very unique as there is elevation shifts all over the map, something never largely seen outside of the edges of the current swamp maps. The Grim Gully / village map may have been scrapped due to conflicts with the raid's current lore and the lore of the map, though there isn't really any concrete evidence to back up this theory. However, I'm pretty sure that developers confirmed in a recent AMA on Reddit that the Blood Willow tree will be implemented in the current swamp maps whenever they rework the Backwater swamp realm, which I genuinely have no idea when that will happen. Still, it's really cool that even though a lot of these assets like the Blood Willow tree have been around ever since the pre-release stages of Dead by Daylight, they're finally going to be seeing the light of day very soon, I hope at least. The next unreleased map that we're going to take a look at is called Dead Lake, and this is a rectangular map which appears to be an early / alternate version of the Grim Pantry, as it contains the same main building. However, the rest of the map's layout is completely different, and the tiles are located at different places compared to where they can usually be found. Fun fact, if we take a look at the official Dead by Daylight artbook, we can actually see some very early concept art of the so-called bait shop, and this, as you all know, is in fact the real Grim Pantry. These neon signs were even modeled into an early prototype of the Dead Lake, however they were later removed since they looked fairly out of place. Fun fact, a remnant of this feature is still present on the icon for the Grim Pantry map. Another unused map from the Backwater swamp realm is called Mound. However, I'm not sure what this one is referring to, as I couldn't find any images relating to it. I did some digging, however, and I eventually found some footage of a developer's swamp map on a video from Minsko's channel. Though I'm not sure if these are the same maps, Mound could have perhaps also been the one from where we saw the sewer pipe asset from. Either way, according to the DBD Wiki, this one is the only map from the swamp realm that is still present in the game's code, with the two other ones having been removed over time, so I don't really know. The final unreleased Dead by Daylight map that we're going to take a look at is a shack version of Ormond, just like the Yamaoka maps that we discussed a couple of minutes ago. This one is a medium-sized map in the form of a U-shape, featuring no main building but instead only a small hut, the shack and a regular firewatch tower. The tower is located in the center of the map on a hill, however that hill doesn't spawn there all of the time. This map is also fully ready for release, but was never shipped out with the chapter for unknown reasons. I personally would have preferred for realms to have more than one singular map in them, even if they only consist of a shack, filler tiles and jungle gyms, since that way in my opinion realms feel a lot more complete. By the way guys, if you want to see more gameplay and screenshots of all of these unreleased maps, I've made sure to link all of the footage that I've used in this video in the description. Unused maps in Dead by Daylight is probably one of the topics that I'm most passionate about, and I hope that you all enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. If you did, then make sure to let me know by leaving a like down below, and also I would be glad if you considered subscribing as well. Anyways, thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!